Sup team, and
Have you ever thought about a world where everything is exactly the same, except you don't exist? Everything functions perfectly fine without you. The thought terrifies me.
yeah, it honestly scares me too, man, but I think you might just be wrong here. I actually think that you and everyone else from Undertale have a place somewhere else. Sit your butt down. Sit your butt down with ConBoi, Goner K, because I think if you don't got a place in Undertale, then you got a place in Deltarune. The timeline is on some commutative properties shit, I'm telling you. Deltarune has the mandatory blueprint, and Undertale's got the backup material.
That makes no sense at all, dude. What are you talking about?
I'm getting there, ConBoi, relax.
This is just gonna be Gaster slop. Nothing but WG Gaster Rory Night Friend December slop.
You know what? You're right, ConBoi. This theory isn't really a concrete theory at all. It's closer to fanfiction than anything. Tons of cool what-ifs, but this whole biz is just for fun, you know what I'm saying? You guys wouldn't have clicked on after / missing pieces parentheses Deltarune conjecture, would you? No. Viewer discretion is advised. You may get mad at the amount of what-ifs and kind of unprovable multiversal things later on, but just stay. Stay with me. Let a fella have some fun. So yes, ConBoi, this is Gaster slop. I want it to be Gaster slop.
Then at least make it good Gaster slop, bro. Have some merit to it.
Okay. Then I guess we're going to have to shove 2 lectures in one. Your funeral. I was gonna just talk about how Deltarune's prophecy forces its world to borrow from Undertale's, but nah. The missing pieces part can wait. We've got to go over some necessary context, I suppose. This is Afterlife theory. Class, we're going on a field trip to the depths for this one. Little change of scenery. Ooh, holy transition. Now, let's get serious. Let's talk about WD Gaster's Entry 17 and his motives behind it before we get into the nitty-gritty, because my thoughts on Entry 17 are mandatory reading before we dive into missing pieces. I don't have to read you Entry 17, at least I hope I don't have to read you Entry 17. Entry 17 better not be older than bro. Pretty common idea by now that 17's about Dark Worlds. And it's all but confirmed as of chapter 3 and 4, because, you know, Ralsei says dark fountains are the byproduct of going, quote, darker than dark. I mean, come on. Come on. Exact language used in Entry 17. That's great and all. Great and all. But why? What led Gaster to make that fateful dark fountain in the first place? There's no way he could have just made one purposefully, because they seemingly don't exist in Undertale like how they do in Deltarune. In Deltarune, it's surprising that everybody hasn't accidentally learned how to make fountains already with how easy they are, like seriously. But they're never mentioned in Undertale, outside of informally in Entry 17. Gaster probably didn't know what he was getting into either, because of the certain wording of Entry 17. This next experiment will be very, very interesting. Interesting already shows some, like, uncertain intrigue, but will be something that hasn't happened yet. Some result, rather, that has not happened yet that he doesn't even know what it could be. But if dark fountains weren't the true end goal of Gaster's experiments, then what was he going for here at all? It's implied that Gaster left behind blueprints that Alphys used to extract determination from human souls. I've done it. Using the blueprints, I've extracted it from human souls. Notice the blueprints, not our blueprints, not my blueprints, the. DT extraction is not a new discovery. Just bringing you all up to speed here, because you can just watch Sock Muppet's video, hopefully info carding if I remember. Such a good video on these True Lab entries. But regardless, what's important for our case is that Gaster was looking into determination as well. He probably didn't call it determination, since Alphys did coin the term, as other entries say, but he was absolutely studying the same thing. Since royal scientists are royal, as in affiliated with the Underground's government, Royal. They are given tasks to complete by King Asgore. This is proven in the first True Lab entry. This is it. Time to do what the king has asked me to do. I will create the power to free us all. I will unleash the power of the soul. That means that Gaster was also given specific study requests by Asgore, since that's just the task of the royal scientist. Do what the crown wants you to do. If Gaster made discoveries related to determination, then I'm obliged to believe that he was given the same or at least a similar goal as Alphys was here. But then, how long ago was Gaster asked to look into this? While we don't know when Alphys became the royal scientist, and we especially don't know when Gaster became the royal scientist, we at least know that Gaster probably had the role for much longer than Alphys did, and was given it a long time ago. Whenever Gaster was given his role, he was able to build the core, the power source of the entire freaking underground. I imagine that would take some time, to say the least. If Gaster was given enough time to find a way to give the entire monster race geothermal power, then he must have had his role for ages. I'm asking a lot of questions here, I know. But why is the time framing of this important? Gaster was the royal scientist before Alphys, That's literally what his followers tell us in Undertale.
That's what I said.
No, you didn't. You were just on some existential bullshit, dude. Let me finish, dude.
Sorry, man.
Sorry. It's alright, man. Just relax, alright? Knowing this super rough timeline of events is important because we can use the state of the underground back then to hypothesize what Asgore specifically asked of Gaster. Of course, Gaster's task led to the discovery and extraction of determination in souls. So that means Asgore likely asked almost the same question he asked Alphys. But I have reason to believe that the nature of Asgore's objectives were way different back then, even if they were, in spirit, the same. In the Snowden library, you can read excerpts of books along the shelves, and they detail monster history and physiology. While we can't know when these books were written, I assume that the books we're looking at, the light and dark green ones, were written around the same time since they're positioned right next to each other. That's all I got, but they also talk about some human-monster war stuff, so probably a while ago. So, assuming the book's age, they both give insight into how negatively monsters viewed humans in the past. Fearing the humans no longer, we moved out of our old city. Home. Next one. Love, hope, compassion. This is what people say monster souls are made of. Humans have proven their souls don't need these things to exist. This is super interesting to me, and is very helpful about gauging what the underground was like in the past, socially speaking. While monsters obviously still have heavy disdain for humanity, main conflict, they seemingly are more lax about it than they were before when we get to the underground, since they knowingly borrow aspects of human culture. Even Undyne, the captain of the human-hunting royal guard, believes that anime is human history, and that it's totally tubular. This is in stark contrast to the thoughts of these past authors in the library. One says that humans have, quote, proven that they hold no capacity for core values, presumably because of the human-monster war, and the other implies that monsters gained a sense of confidence against the humans, and using that other book as evidence, that confidence was probably founded in some sort of moral superiority. In short, the monsters liked the humans way less back then than they do now. As the leader of monster kind, Asgore probably instilled a lot of these ideas. He was on the front lines of the human-monster war, after all. This likely reflected in his politics and his ambitions, trickling down to all of his actions in major ways. I think the largest example of this may have been what Asgore asked of Gaster. While Alphys was only tasked with freeing monster kind without really what happens after, Asgore probably felt a lot more passionately about the humans than he does in Undertale, again reflecting in his scientific request. Thus, I don't think that Asgore just asked Gaster to find a way to, quote, find the power to free us all. No, I think Asgore not only wanted that, but wanted Gaster to do something even more specific with it. I believe Asgore wanted Gaster to turn monster kind into super soldiers that could strike back against the humans upon their resurface. This makes sense to me. It lines up with why Gaster researched information about DT extraction. He likely wanted to use soul power in some way in his efforts to beef up monster kind. I think we can get even more specific than this, though. I think that, unlike Alphys, who found it as an unfortunate side effect of trying to bring fallen monsters back to life, Gaster was seeking out monster immortality, fully, whether by Asgore's request or his own ideas. But, to answer why I think this, we're going to have to start getting a bit multiversial.
For Christ's sake, are we at that missing pieces part yet then?
No, ConBoi, we aren't at the missing pieces part yet. Just bear with me here, Team Chachos. Bear with me. New slang, Team Chachos. Anyway, the Delta Rune. That's Delta Space Rune appears all throughout Undertale. When asking Gerson about it, he brings up what I would like to discuss. The prophecy. Undertale's prophecy. Legend has it, an angel who has seen the surface will descend from above and bring us freedom. Undertale has its own angel. This is further reinforced by glyphs in Waterfall, saying, however, there is a prophecy. The angel, the one who has seen the surface, they will return and the underground will go empty. Undertale's got an angel, and it's inside of Undertale's formerly named prophecy. Prophecy? What? You can tell where this is going. It's Deltarune in time, baby. In both Undertale and Deltarune, monster dust is scattered on the Fallen's favorite mementos before they're buried. Proven by another book in the library in Undertale, and by Susie when she finds out the true nature of Gerson's dark life in Deltarune. Gerson's false life through the church dark world is the most important piece here. Rouse explains that Susie failed to revive Gerson herself because he would, quote, only appear in very specific darknesses. This is just to reiterate what I'm sure you already all know, but dark worlds can revive people. But the part I want to talk about is that only specific darknesses can do this. Darkeners patterned after the memory of a loved one tend to only appear in very specific darknesses. This is why Susie's attempt at bringing Gerson back made a violent husk. The sound of justice reflects Susie's deepest insecurities about people, quote, not telling her the whole deal because she, made the second sanctuary. On the other hand, whoever the knight is, they have a much more seemingly accurate memory of Gerson, allowing him to be more faithfully brought back in the Dark World, from what we know anyway. Then the Dark Worlds can't truly revive people, but they form ghosts on specific memories. Ghosts of somebody past. In a way, they tap into the afterlife.
Oh, there it is.
I know, right? I cooked! Holy shit! This afterlife aspect is also reflected in Deltarune's own prophecy, as Dark World shenanigans are indirectly involved in the religion of Hometown. Caddy confirms that Rouse is part of the prophecy they worship, mentioning a hero with, horns? This means that, by extension, Dark Worlds are probably an aspect of the Deltarune prophecy as well, although not mentioned by the sermon that we see. And by extension to that extension, that means Afterlife is also part of the Deltarune prophecy, and that would line up with Deltarune's religion of scattering dust onto a deceased one's favorite object. Now, going back to Undertale. Undertale's angel either refers to Asriel or Kara, as they are believed to one day, quote, return. It's not the player or Frisk for our purposes because they and we have never been in the underground before Undertale. We aren't returning on first playthrough. Thus, that means Asriel and Kara in Undertale are destined to be resurrected in some way. The neutral runs don't really fulfill the prophecy, by the way, because Underground just doesn't go empty in them. But that ain't really important, just wanted to mention for clarity. The big picture here is that the afterlife is also part of Undertale's prophecy and world. I then believe that the Underground's religion is what motivated Gaster to research monster immortality. With ideas of the afterlife baked into their religion, he likely wanted to use science to prove whether or not the concept could actually be useful to the Underground. He was then led to determination through his studies, and tried to use it to answer the question of how to harness the afterlife and achieve immortality. But there's a problem. Determination can't do that in Undertale. It can't make somebody strongly immortal. We find that to be Alphys's ultimate folly in the true pacifist route. Monster immortality can be achieved through determination, but monsters lose all sense of self and become husks of what they were before. There's no way to achieve perfect immortality in Undertale's world. But in Deltarune, determination is what's used to make dark fountains, which, if made by the right person holding the right memories, can effectively revive people through the afterlife. In spirit, that is what I believe Gaster wanted to do in his time as royal scientist. He wanted to be able to grant monsters immortality while retaining who they were. But that's impossible in Undertale, as we just mentioned. That can only somewhat happen in Deltarune's world, using its own rules a la Gerson frickin' Boom.
Whoa, hang on, bro. But you thought Gaster made a Dark Fountain in Diddy 17. If Dark Words are impossible in Undertale, how would that even work?
Yeah, what he said. It's almost like everything is the exact same, except they don't exist.
I was about to get there, you two.
There's so many plot holes in this shit that I'm gonna need to put up a sign.
Even if I don't exist, I cooked your ass. I'm right.
I said I was about to get there!
Sure you were, Chud. You hyped up some kind of second half earlier. What was it even called?
If you would shut up and make your mods, ConBoi, then I could...
Something about the commutative property of the timelines or something batshit insane. There's so much that makes zero sense. There's piles and piles of missing pieces.
What in the dickens was that? ConBoi?
Just start the lecture, little bro.
Okay. That worked for a flashy segue anyway. That was all just some subtext for what I really want to talk about here, team. The missing pieces of Undertale and Deltarune's worlds. As previously mentioned, it's impossible to make dark fountains in Undertale's world. Its logic just does not allow it. But think of it like this instead. What if this was only meant to be impossible? But whoa, partner. Then why was Gaster able to freaking do it? To answer that question, we gotta keep on universe hopping. We gotta re-enter Deltarune, guys. Fair warning though, this is why I said what I said around the beginning. What I'm about to tell you is a bunch of sci-fi kinda what-ify stuff that I just thought of for fun. Keep that in mind. Normalize making Deltarune hypotheticals for fun. I know I called it theory in the title, but I already said what I think about that. Anyway. Re-entering Deltarune. The hot topic right now. The prophecy. Deltarune's prophecy. We aren't talking about the Tales prophecy anymore. It's confusing to me as well as I write this, but I'm just trying to keep this as clear as possible as I become more insane. The prophecy currently has, and seemingly is supposed to keep having a chokehold over Deltarune's narrative, accurately laying out the hero's adventures beat by beat. Whether it'll prove to keep being correct is up to time, but I'm going to go off the assumption that the prophecy is literally laying out everything that has happened and or will happen in Deltarune's world, just making it simple. Weird route, be damned. And, as you all know if you've played Chapter 4, the Knight is a critical component of the prophecy. The Knight which makes with black knife shall duel with heroes strife by strife. Their creation of the Dark Worlds enables everything else to happen. Fountains freed, roaring cries, whatever that one says. Most of the action so far has happened within Dark Worlds, and I imagine that'll mostly stay true. The Knight is a crucial part of the prophecy, and yet we don't know who they are, like, more so how they came to be. The prophecy holds the schematics of Deltarune's world that must be followed to a T, and yet, by default, there are no main catalysts for it. If there's no Knight, no antagonizing forces at all, then there's no roaring and no mandatory ending. What to do? What to do? Where would Deltarune's world naturally find these missing pieces from? I discussed Undertale and Deltarune's similarities regarding death and the afterlife for a reason. There's tons of other similarities too, but I wanted to bring up that more intricate example because it holds the answer for our night problem. Recall that Gaster was trying to use determination to tap into the afterlife to achieve monster immortality, but it was meant to be impossible, since that's not how determination works in Undertale. Yet it is how it works in Deltarune. Before his demise, Gaster got incredibly close to discovering the power of the wrong world's determination. Gaster's brilliance was irreplaceable. However, his life was cut short. One day, his experiments went wrong, and while his followers could just be glazing the ever-loving shit out of him, I'm going to choose to believe that he was as insanely smart as Gaster follower number 3 makes him sound. As I already mentioned, Brother made the main power source of the underground. This guy was the real deal. I'm not saying he intended to think on a multiversal level, but I don't doubt that he could have without realizing it. His experiments went wrong. The phrasing of went wrong leads me to believe that whatever experiment led to his premature end, it was the result he was looking for. That isn't to say he knew what the result was. That's not to say he knew a dark fountain could or would pop up, but it held the answers to his burning questions on the afterlife and immortality. Let's jump back into Deltarune again. The knight needs to be someone with a strong desire to make dark worlds willy-nilly. Someone who has extensive knowledge on the Dark World's nature regarding the afterlife, evident by their creation of the most accurate Gerson boom we have in our playable Deltarune, and someone formidable that has little chance of being defeated. And it must be a someone, because they gotta have a consciousness to do all this, even if it's detached or whatever. Des corpse theory for the win, but anyway. In spirit, the knight needs to be someone who is, to the narrative in nature, immortal. But that is impossible in Deltarune outside of deceased Lightners coming back as only Darkners under hyper-specific circumstances, but Darkners can't make fountains. Even if somebody were to try to make some kind of knight candidate, there would be no end goal, happy or not. The world has no plans for a knight. Even though the prophecy demands it, the world of Deltarune has no cause and effect for there being a knight in nature, I believe. Deltarune has no contingency plan for somebody trying to achieve narrative immortality. This is a complex point that I'm trying to make into a small paragraph here, but Gaster is not the royal scientist in the Undertale that we play, obviously. But we are playing Undertale. We have to get Undertale on a meta level. Relative to Gaster's time, Undertale is the future. And with Undertale also having a prophecy that must be fulfilled, the future must happen in an exact way to enable the angel's return. Alphys's accidental creation of the amalgamates is thus a key component of Undertale's future, as it's something we have to be able to experience in game form. Held back by the logic of Undertale's world, then, Gaster would have created the amalgamates if only his studies had kept going. But he couldn't have made the amalgamates. Alphys must be the one to make the amalgamates to guarantee the proper future of Undertale. But Gaster's getting too close. By the laws of the universe, Gaster's gotta go. But he'd fit a lot better answering a different, neighboring world's question. One already linked by a plethora of key similarities on the topic of afterlife and immortality. Gaster needs to find the key to immortality, but Undertale's future can't allow it. Deltarune needs to find its spiritually undying night, as the prophecy won't allow otherwise. Undertale's world is not working toward immortality besides Gaster, the outlier, but his goal is one that only Deltarune's logic can fulfill. Deltarune's world is not inherently working toward finding that narratively immortal night, as it has no destination after the journey. But Undertale does have that destination through the amalgamates. It has natural consequences of immortality. And suddenly then, without realizing the multiversal pact he has fulfilled.
Entry number 17. Darker yet darker.
Gaster, in trying to tap into the afterlife and discover immortality for monster kind, has given an entirely different world the answer to a question it thought unanswerable.
The darkness keeps growing. The shadows cutting deeper.
Undertale had no way of knowing it could answer Deltarune's fatal question. Gaster was the only component of Undertale's world to unknowingly come so close, and thus he unintentionally bridged the gap.
Photon readings negative.
Deltarune had no way of knowing it could finally set Undertale's future in stone with its own determination.
This next experiment seems very...
This was an equal exchange. Undertale had to lose its greatest mind to fill in the prophecy's gaps, and so it gave Deltarune the natural consequences to spiritual immortality that it sought for.
Interesting.
The amalgamates.
What do you two think?
It was a hard bargain, but Deltarune got what it needed. Undertale's future was guaranteed, and the laws of both universes were in agreement. And they did not let that fateful fountain last for very long. The amalgamates, with their excess determination and the consequences thereof, gave Deltarune a natural form and consequence for an antagonistic force, and for its coveted night. Whew. All that just to say that that's why I think the night is droopy, and that's why Friend looks like a nuggety. I know, right? Crazy stuff!
That's it? You did all that for what?
For fun.
You call that fun? That was just a load of fan fiction.
Not much fun value in that one. But damn it, Goner K, was it fun to me? My guy, it was fun to me, Goner K. That was something I've had on my mind since June, okay? Okay? It had to get out there at some point. It had to. But I understand it might seem kind of anticlimactic to have all that Gaster backstory and yada yada, and it builds up to Knight and Friend looking how they do, but I just thought that was like a cool thing. That's what sparked my thought process. I mean, not my thought process, but that's why I wanted to think of this to begin with, and why I wrote it back in my notes app back in June. Actually, I don't think it was June, maybe it was August. Whenever it was a eureka moment I had. But Missing Pieces, for me, is mainly meant to be like a framework. Like, we're on some philosophy type stuff here, because I just wanted to get my own framework I can use for other things. Maybe this could even help us out with deaths or something, but that is for another day. With that said though, I hope this was insightful for somebody. I had this idea months ago, more so because I wanted to take a critical look at what actually led up to entry 17, and like what the point of Gaster's rule was. As world scientist, I don't know. I like thinking about it. And I know it was probably kind of crazy. I threw a bunch of points. But it was fun. So whatever. Whatever. If you liked watching this here video, then I encourage you to like and subscribe, leave a comment, and join the Dang Nabbit Discord server linked in the description, and consider supporting me with channel memberships for $2.99. It's time for the Rubes 70 Digest. This one is from Not Biddy But a Dude. Dear Ruben72vin, would you rather have a ConBoi son or a Biddy But a Dude daughter? I am not Biddy, by the way. Answer this question wisely. Also, I've been meaning to say this, but your thumbnails are fire. Mang. Also, have you played Deltarune? It's kind of like Undertale. Takes place in an AU of sorts, and you are the AU guy. Wow, imagine an AU where you aren't the AU guy. That would make me say AU. AU! Okay, Biddy, I'm not the AU guy. First of all, this isn't Biddy. I'm a different guy. Second of all, you are definitely the AU guy. Third of all, why would you deny it? You're definitely the AU guy. This is a peek at the AU where you aren't the AU guy. What do you think? You should really consider covering this AU. LOA. Lots of AUs. A random fan. ConBoi, probably. I'm going to respond with the automated response of good questions. Thank you, Not Biddy. And that's this week's fan mail. If you'd like to submit your own business email up there, I will cover it. The deadline for a video is anything before Thursday of a week, because I try to upload Sunday. Try to. So yeah. See y'all later. Like, subscribe, Discord server, Bansion, fucking Bansion, basement, find it, sayonara.